Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube and Twitter. I am Bryson Carver. We've got an excellent show for you guys today. All kinds of NFL talk with Russell Wilson. Also, that big game last night between the Bucs and the 76ers. All kinds of stuff going on there. Interesting, I noticed there's this thing going on where we have a problem if somebody celebrates, but we don't have to take accountability for us putting them in the situation, in the position to celebrate. Stick around for that. Also, I'll discuss the whole situation with the Nets. Got another win last night. They need Kevin Durant ASAP, and I'll discuss that later on the show. Also, other things to get into as well, and why I think the New England Patriots are going to miss the playoffs in 2021 despite their free agent signings. But first, I have to address something that's going on in this country right now, and that's the ongoing hate crimes against Asians, Asian Americans in this country. And I want to say that it makes me sick, especially coming off of a year, starting really with the George Floyd situation last year in May, where we're trying to, right, as a country, like educate ourselves, what's going on with America? What's going wrong with America? And when you hear situations where Asians are being abused, they're being called names. Jeremy Lin, by the way, Lin Sanity, remember him? He plays in the G League now for the G League affiliate of the Golden State Warriors. And he said that a player called him coronavirus on the court. And so, by the way, the G League and the NBA opened up an investigation, and they found the player that said this, and I don't know what the punishment is for this guy, but he should absolutely be punished. That's ridiculous, what he did. But I want to say, I want to sit here and say my heart goes out to the Asian community, but I feel like that's what we do too many times, is that we sit here and we say, oh, my heart goes out to you, move on to whatever else is going on with life. You know, I notice in this country, we're really, really good at my heart goes out to you, prayers and condolences, move on. And you never really address the problem. So at the end of the day, maybe it's because I'm 17, maybe I'm going to be 18 in 3 months. Maybe it's because I haven't really lived in the world yet, like the adult listeners watching and viewers watching the show are. But I don't understand how it can't get through some people's head that if I get a paper cut and you get a paper cut, we bleed the same. We're human beings. So it makes me sick what's happening to Asians in this country. Again, I don't have any answers for it. All I can say is that what's going on is unacceptable, and it's got to stop. It's got to stop, people. Any hate crime of any kind. I mean, we saw, of course, what happened in Atlanta the other day. It makes you sick to your stomach, and just prayers go out to those involved. It's just as we have a comment from Clutch Sports Talk. Yep, that's why I don't take any of this serious, because most people all talk. That's it. That's it right there. That's the thing. I'm tired of hearing, oh, okay, this is a bad situation, and then we just move on with life. Like, what are we really going to do? Ryan, the guy who commented this, shout out to him, Clutch Sports Talk. Go check out his show. I believe it's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. Basically, where you're watching this show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. But he said, and I do agree with this, that the NBA, the boycott during the bubble should have lasted longer. More than 2 or 3 days. It didn't really make a big enough statement. And so just any kind of injustice, any kind of discrimination, sexism, racism, anything of any kind, homophobia. It's just, why we got to hate each other, man? Like, what's up with that? We're all human beings, man. It don't matter if we're black, we're white, we're Asian, we're male or female. It don't matter, man. Our religion, our political affiliation. Who cares? We're human beings. Okay? What happened to treating each other with respect? What happened to the golden rule? What happened to that, man? So let's all come together, man. There's so much stuff going on in the world right now. We're already dealing with a pandemic. Why do we got to just go after people like they're our enemies or something? We all share the same planet. We might as well like each other. Why we got to fight each other constantly, man? So thoughts and prayers go out to the entire Asian community. I stand with you. And it's just breaks your heart. Now, moving on to, I'll go ahead and get our serious topic of the day out of the way. Deshaun Watson. I've been covering the story quite frequently over the last 2.5 months, as everybody has, of him requesting a trade from the Houston Texans organization. And, I've said from the start, look, Deshaun was promised by Houston, hey, we're going to interview multiple minority candidates. He's like, okay. And they didn't initially until Deshaun's like, okay, I want out. And then they interview minority candidates. Well, we got a whole new twist in this story. So it started on Tuesday, I believe. We had one woman, a massage therapist, who accused Deshaun Watson of sexual assault last March of 2020. Like right at the beginning of the pandemic, she accuses him of sexual assault. Today, I just read we have 9. So, of course, today it's way too. We don't know who's in the right, who's in the wrong. We don't know if Deshaun's right. We don't know if the accusers are right as well. So, according to TMZ, just broke the story a few minutes ago. Actually, this says the NFL has launched an investigation. The league has reached out to the lawyer representing the 9 women who are making sexual misconduct claims against Deshaun Watson. So there's a lot coming with this story. All I know is that, if it's true, this is bad. This is really bad. If it's not true, it's also really bad. So it's look, considering when I saw this, if there were certain players in the league, like if someone made this kind of, if someone alleged this against somebody, we're like, oh, we wouldn't be shocked. Like that guy's had off the field issues. Deshaun Watson, it's like, whoa, he may have did this, because Deshaun Watson has about as clean of an off-field record at this point, at least, as anybody in football. So this is not a good look for Deshaun. Certainly, we hope he didn't do it. I have no clue. I really have no clue. I don't know if he's right. I don't know if the women accusing him of this are right. We just got to let this thing play out. If there's anything we've learned from anything legal, let this sucker play out, because this is going to be a long developing story for Deshaun Watson, the Houston Texans, and the entire National Football League. And it definitely puts his trade demands on hold. There's no question about it. So we got to see how this one plays out. We saw the other day that he narrowed his list down to 2 teams, Denver and San Francisco. And I said on this show, if Deshaun Watson gets traded to San Francisco, good night. They're going to the Super Bowl. I'd take them today if they're healthy, over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's how great Deshaun Watson is. But this adds a whole nother layer, a whole new, kind of development into the story. So we just got to sit back and see how this plays out, because this is a very, very serious case. So certainly we all hope he didn't do it. We hope nothing bad happened. But again, we have to sit back and see how it plays out, because again, this sexual misconduct, sexual assault, very, very, very serious case. So we just got to let this thing play out over, because this is going to be an overnight thing. This is not going to be an overnight thing. We saw with, a few years ago, Ezekiel Elliott. We've seen with Greg Hardy. These cases take a long, long time to develop. Sometimes we get new evidence, sometimes we don't get anything. Like, it just all depends on what happens. So the NFL has launched an investigation into Deshaun Watson, and they are looking to interview the 9 women accusing him of sexual misconduct. So very, very massive twist to this whole story. So we got to see what happens. So let's get hopefully to a more lighthearted subject. Free agency started Monday, and the New England Patriots have by far been the most aggressive team in free agency. And not gonna lie, it's came to a big shock to me. It's came to a big shock of a lot of people. Like, whoa, Belichick, who never spends money in free agency, all of a sudden we're getting this guy, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, and pass rushers, and it's like, whoa, what's happening? Hold up, slow down, ladies and gentlemen. This is not Matthew Judon, pass rusher. Hold on. Let's sit back and look at these free agent names, okay, shall we? Okay, he got Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Certainly, the New England Patriots are upgrading at tight end. It's a much better alternative than, Matt LaCosse. Okay, no disrespect to Matt LaCosse, but I think I would take Hunter. Definitely would take Hunter Henry. I've liked him since college at Arkansas, and definitely Anu Smith, who's a great red zone target. So big upgrade. You have Kendrick Bourne. You have Nelson Aguilar. Can Nelson Aguilar become what he was in Vegas, where he still had drop problems, but not as bad as it was in Philly? So we got to see how that plays out as well. Matthew Judon. I've liked Matthew Judon for a while now. I think he's a really good pass rusher. Like the signing. They re-signed Dietrich Wise, 4 years, $30 million. Devon Godshaw, 2 years, $16 million. Henry Anderson, Jalen Mills was a notable signing. Justin Bethel, 3 years, $6 million. They're not making the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, man. First of all, let's keep this in mind. First of all, they lost Patrick Chung, who I thought would be coming back from opt-out, but Patrick Chung today announced that he was going to retire. So that's a big loss in their secondary. We also know that in the 8 years that Coach Belichick, Bill Belichick, has been a head coach in this league, 8 seasons without Tom Brady, he has made the playoffs one time. And in 6 of those years, he's had a losing record. This is Cleveland and New England. Okay? So what this appears to me to be is a desperation move. We see this all the time, right? If a guy and a girl break up, right? They're in a relationship and they split. And the girl goes on to get with another guy and they're happily married and they have kids 3-4 years later. And then here's the guy over here and he gets the nice house. He gets the sports car, right? He's trying to show off. He's like, hey, look what you're missing over here. That's Bill Belichick. He's like, hey, hold on. I know you guys got Shaq Barrett. I know Tom Brady restructured his deal. I know you brought back Chris Godwin. Who else? Levante David. Hey, look, I got Matthew Judon. Patriots aren't going anywhere next year, ladies and gentlemen. They're not. Okay. I like the re-signing of Cam Newton. He's certainly a much better alternative at quarterback than Jarrett Stidham or Brian Hoyer. You take Cam Newton. I like Cam Newton. I think if you give him the right weapons, he's still a good quarterback in the NFL. But here's the problem. You still got to deal with Buffalo in the division. Okay, the Jets are getting better. Okay, Miami's defense is stacked. Okay, the Dolphins had 5 wins in 2019, Brian Flores' first year. They doubled that to 10 wins in 2020. And that's rotating quarterbacks, Tua and Fitzpatrick. I'm willing to give Tua one more shot because Tua will get a full off season. He's the guy. I know they brought in Jacoby Brissett, but Tua is the front runner, I would think, to land the starting quarterback job in Miami. So we got a lot of issues with the quarterback situation in Miami, but I think Tua's the guy. I'll give him one more shot. I'm not saying the Patriots are the worst team in the division. The Jets still are, okay? But the Jets are getting better. There's rumors that they've talked to Juju Smith-Schuster, so it's looking like they might bring back Sam Darnold and not take Zach Wilson in the first round with the second overall pick out of BYU. Okay? And just you sit back and you say, okay, good free agent signings, but it's not, they're not hitting home runs now. I mean, really, just sit back and think, do we look at any of these moves and say, oh my goodness, this is franchise changing? I remember a very similar situation last season when the New England Patriots did not have a quarterback. Up until late June, early July, we're like, oh my God, Jarrett Stidham is going to be the starting quarterback. How's this going to work? And then, bam, Cam Newton is signed by the New England Patriots. And I remember it was a Sunday night. It actually happened to be on my birthday. Okay, the next day, I remember the media reaction. I actually remember a lot of people, they said there are 3 teams out of the AFC in the Super Bowl bubble. Number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, of course, they were the defending champs at the time. Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, same rosters the year prior. That's not a stretch at all. And of course, they went to the Super Bowl. The Baltimore Ravens. Okay, well, they had the best record in football the year prior. Lamar Jackson was the reigning MVP. All right, John Harbaugh, they had gotten some good players in free agency and through trades and drafted J.K. Dobbins in the draft. So of course, Baltimore's in the Super Bowl picture. And people actually had the audacity to say, and the third team is the New England Patriots. You know what I notice? I would say this matters because we all know whatever field it is, sports, politics, entertainment, the media does lean one way or the other. They do have bias. Look, we all have bias. Okay, we're not robots. But at the end of the day, I noticed that there seems to be this downplay of what Tampa Bay did in free agency. And in New England, whoa, look out for New England. They're going to be Super Bowl contenders next year. Come on. Okay, the Bucks got back Shaq Barrett, who I did not think they'd get back, and they gave him his money too. The man's going to make $72 million over the next 4 years. Good for him, man. He deserves every penny. He's a great pass rusher. He was huge in them winning in Green Bay in the NFC Championship game and winning the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Okay, they got Chris Godwin back for at least one more year on the franchise tag. Tom Brady restructured his deal, so he's going to be here for a while and take less money, so you can re-sign guys like this, keep the Brady bunch, as I've heard some people call it, together. They kept Levante David, who is only the most underrated linebacker over the last 5 or 6 seasons. Seriously, this guy's as good as it gets. Okay, of course they already have Devin White, who's on a rookie deal, and nobody's talking about what Tampa Bay's done in free agency. Nobody. But because the Patriots got Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar, their receiving core is going to be up there with the Kansas City Chiefs or the Dallas Cowboys or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Come on, man. Let's not overreact. This is not a Super Bowl team. This is not a playoff team. Let's look across the AFC. Kansas City's going to get to the playoffs. Baltimore's getting to the playoffs. I believe Cleveland's going to get to the playoffs. They'll be one of the 7 teams, right? You look at the Indianapolis Colts. For my issues with Carson Wentz, he's better than Phillip Rivers. Okay, they're making the playoffs. You look at, I believe the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs. The Dolphins are a better football team today than New England. We look at Tennessee. The Titans will make the playoffs. They have the last 2 seasons. And then you got that 7 spot available. Who's to say Pittsburgh won't be that 7th team? Okay, Big Ben's clearly regressing. I get it. But are we saying New England's a better team than Pittsburgh today? Are you sure about that? Are we 100% sure that, because even down the stretch of last season, as bad as Pittsburgh was, they were better than New England. Let's not forget this team did, for what it's worth, start 11-0 last year. Okay, and the Patriots were out of the playoff picture in week 15. Are the Patriots a better football team today? Yes. Of course they're a better football team today than they were a year ago. And of course, it's going to help that the pandemic isn't going to play as much of a factor, knock on wood, this year than it did last year. But we got to sit back and say, okay, did they go and trade for Russell Wilson, who I'm going to talk about later in the show? Did they go and trade for Deshaun Watson? Of course, we all the situation going on in Houston right now is not good. But did they trade for? No. And again, I like Cam Newton a lot. I think Cam Newton is a top 25 quarterback in the league. That's good. He's a starter. There's no question about it. But when you look at the retirement of Patrick Chung, okay, you look at the fact that Matthew Judon, to me, is probably the best signing. Matthew Judon and Hunter Henry are the best signings in my book. They do bring back Dante Hightower. I get it. And I love that Belichick's being aggressive here. But all this is just a simple distraction for what Tampa Bay's doing. Of course, the media bit. They took the bait. They took the bait from Belichick. Again, I don't really understand. Nobody's talked about what Tampa Bay's done in free agency. I believe the Bucs won free agency. I believe because they kept the same roster as last year. We didn't think they'd keep they brought Gronk back. Okay, 1 year, $10 million. Or is it 1 year, $2 million? No, he's going to make $10 million. I believe it's a 1 year deal. They bring back Gronk. They restructure Brady's deal. They're bringing back Godwin and Barrett and Levante David. All of those players are better than whoever New England has, as far as free agent signings. All of them. So let's sit back and say we can just sit back in a minute. I know some of you out there, you hate Brady and you hate the 7 rings, and I get it. You know, you get tired of watching greatness. I don't understand why, but you do. I understand that. But you got to sit back and say, New England's done. The Belichick made up about 10% of the credit for the success of the New England Patriots. Because Brady in New England is the same as Michael Jordan in Chicago. What have the Bulls done without Michael Jordan in their franchise history? They were hot garbage on the 4th of July with him, or excuse me, before him, certainly not with him. With him, they had the growing period, and they make it to the playoffs, then they fall short to the bad boy Pistons, and then they reel off 6 championships in 8 years. And then he retires, and the Bulls have made it to the playoffs a few times. You had the Derrick Rose MVP season, but outside of that, nobody's really taking the Bulls seriously. The Patriots have been to 2 Super Bowls without Tom Brady. It was actually pre-Brady. But come on, nobody takes New England seriously. Deep down, you don't think New England can beat Buffalo or Kansas City or even Indianapolis or Cleveland. No, none. New England does roster-wise, depth chart is not even close to some of those teams. And you tell me this Patriots defense is going to stop Kansas City, especially the way Tampa Bay did? We got to sit back and we got to be honest. Okay, this is not a playoff team. Just look at the roster, top to the bottom. This is not a playoff team. I'm glad they brought Cam back. I'm glad that Cam is still a starter in this league because he deserves to be. He's earned that right over the course of his career, and he had his good moments last year. To his credit, this is not a playoff team in the slightest. Even in the AFC, certainly NFC, that's out the window. But all it is Bill Belichick is the it's just like a couple, they date for a while and then they break up and she goes off, marries a successful guy. She's successful. They live happily ever after. And then the guy she breaks up with is just trying to get attention. He's buying all the nice stuff. That's all it is. That's what Belichick's trying to do. He knows he lost this one to Brady. So come on. We gotta stop overreacting every time something like this happens with the New England Patriots. Okay. Danny Amendola said it best himself during Super Bowl week on a show on FS1 about a month and a half ago. He said, that we talked about the Patriot way for 2 decades. Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick talked about the Patriot way. He said the Patriot way was Tom Brady. Tom Brady was the Patriot way. Okay, so come on, let's stop. So let me shift to Russell Wilson, who is still currently a Seattle Seahawk. And I see some of the moves that the Seahawks have made in free agency. And I see they signed Gerald Everett. I see they traded for, I believe, the guard from the Vegas Raiders to bolster their offensive line. And I'm like, hold on a second. How did we not know this all along? Because we saw this happen with Russell Wilson just 3 years ago. Sit with me for a minute. So 3 years ago, Russell Wilson, if you remember this, he was coming up on a contract year. It's the last year of his deal. And he wants an extension. But the Seahawks believe they have the leverage. I don't know why they believe this, but they believe they have the leverage in Russell Wilson's contract negotiations in 2018. Or it was 2019. It was 2 years ago. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. It was 2 years ago. And Russell Wilson wants a contract extension. And the Seahawks are like, I don't know if I think we have the leverage here. And so Russell Wilson's like, fine. I'm setting a deadline. It was like April 25th or something. It was right before the NFL draft. It was he set a deadline. I remember, I think it was April 25th. He said, okay, bam, April 25th. If I don't have a contract, I'm out. I will never play another game with the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, you have from here to here to either trade me or give me an extension. And, it shocked the Seahawks. It shocked all of us because Russell Wilson is Mr. Go Hawks. He's, he's the ultimate team player, right? He's, he never says a bad word about the coaches. He never says anything. Well, he had never said anything bad about any teammates up until, his offensive lineman, which that's the only part about Russ I didn't love is him going after his offensive line. I didn't love that. Outside of that, I understood where he was coming from. But remember, he was saying, look, I'm out of here and you trade me to the New York Giants, because that was his number one destination. I don't know why, but he wanted to go to the New York Giants. I think in part for his career and for his wife's career, Sierra, right? She's an entertainer. She's, a singer. She's like, I can't really elevate my career, level up my career in Seattle the way I could New York. So, there was that component that played into it. That's why I think, remember these, some of these players that are married for Tom Brady with Giselle. Giselle's like, I'm from Brazil. I'm tired of this cold weather in Foxborough. And then we hear this quote from Tom Brady a few months ago. Yeah, you won't catch me dead in Foxborough weather anymore. It matters. And so you see with Russell Wilson, he's like, okay, I want out of Seattle unless you give me a contract extension. And then right at the deadline, Russell Wilson becomes the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And so Russell Wilson goes back to, what he was like, go Hawks, team first, team. There's no I in team. It's team, Seattle Seahawks. And then this year he sees, okay, they won't give me input in the offense. I don't have the offensive line I need to be successful, like the Bradys, like the Rodgers. Let me play the same card that I did 2 years ago. Let me be the opposite of what I normally am to gain leverage. Because it shocked them. It shocked the Seahawks 2 years ago. So he's like, let's see if it shocks them this time. And it did. And of course, you had heard reports that the Seahawks were like taking calls for Russell Wilson, which I said on this show, if that happens and they trade Russ, it'll be by a mile the biggest mistake in the history of their franchise. They will never recover from this. Certainly in the Pete Carroll era. And what happens? They signed Gerald Everett. Weapon. Upgrade, they lost Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen retired. Still, I think Gerald Everett is a better tight end than Greg Olsen. They signed Gerald Everett. Nice tight end. And then they trade for the guard. Really good player. I believe he's a Pro Bowler with the Las Vegas Raiders. It's all of a sudden, it's like, Russell Wilson's going to stay in Seattle. You might as well kill the trade rumors. They're dead. The 4 teams that Russell Wilson wanted to go to, there's, Dallas re-signed Dak, so he's not going to Dallas. That was one of the teams on his preferred destination list that his agent put out, so he's not going to Dallas. You see with the New Orleans Saints, they re-signed Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. Russ isn't going to New Orleans. We saw the Chicago Bears signed Andy Dalton. Okay. I guess, and by the way, I actually saw a quote like 30 minutes before I went on here, or really an hour before. We're 30 minutes into the show. An hour before I did the show, I saw that Andy Dalton, they asked him why he chose the Chicago Bears. You know what he said? Because they told me I would be the starter. Okay, so the Bears gave up on the Russell Wilson sweepstakes. So Russ ain't going to Chicago. He's not going to the Raiders. Okay, I mean, the chances of that happening are great, especially with the Seahawks getting the offensive lineman, signing the good tight end. He's going to stay a Seattle Seahawk. And I said on the show, even when that stuff was happening with, Russ is unhappy, and I'm like, okay, ball's in Seattle's court. Okay, they got to go get some offensive linemen in free agency. And by the way, keep in mind, he does still have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And that defense was really bad the first part of the season, first half of the season. And then they really came on at the end of the year. Like, right, Jamal Adams got healthy and played unbelievable. So Seattle's going to be fine next year. Russell Wilson will be a Seattle Seahawk, but this is a brilliant, brilliant way to gain the leverage. Because what did he do? He sat back and he said, you know what? They have this image of me like, I won't ever cause any disruption. Like it's all about, I'm going to retire Seahawk. I'm going to play, 15, 20 years with the Seattle Seahawks. And, me and Sierra and the kids will ride off the sunset and it'll just be sunshine and rainbows. And he's like, hold on. They don't appreciate me. They don't realize how much I've really done for this franchise. Okay, sign me to an extension by this day. If you don't, I'm requesting a trade. And so, the Seahawks are like, nope, we're not going to do it. And then I swear it was like 2 or 3 hours before, it was April 25th, I believe it was the deadline. It was like 3 or 4 hours, 9 o'clock on April 24th, and boom, we make him the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. So Russell, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't fun, but he got his way. He did it in the same way here. He's going to have more input in the offense, we believe. They sign the offensive lineman. They get the tight end, Gerald Everett, good player. They'll upgrade in the draft, although I am a little worried about that because the Seahawks aren't a great drafting team. But this all but secures Russell Wilson will be in Seattle this season. And so we got to see how it plays out. Because remember, keep in mind, Russell Wilson, the first half of last year, was the runaway MVP. I mean, he was, let Russ cook. Well, that's the thing. If they let Russ cook. Now, again, I understand Pete Carroll likes to run the football. And listen, you got to have a good running game to be successful in the NFL. Even Tampa Bay, great running game. That's kind of what hurt Kansas City is the end. Is they kind of struggled to run the ball in the Super Bowl. What hurt Buffalo in the long run is they couldn't really run the ball, period, all season. They kind of just relied on Josh Allen. The Packers in the games where they couldn't run the ball, they struggled. Against the Colts, against Tampa Bay twice. So you do need to be able to run the ball. But it can't be when you have Russell Wilson, running is not your number one source of offense. Okay, it's not. If you were, I don't know, if you're the Chicago Bears or even the Washington football team with Ryan Fitzpatrick, you're running the ball is probably going to be your number one source of offense. In Seattle, when you got Russell Wilson, who I believe personally is the second best quarterback in football to Mahomes, yeah, you got to let that man cook. You got to let that man do his thing. With Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and now Gerald Everett and you're bringing back some of your running backs and you added an offensive lineman. Russ will be in Seattle next year. Now all they have to do to secure, hey, he's good. He's with us. Give him input on the offense. If you do that, you'll be right back in Super Bowl contention. Not saying they're better than Tampa Bay. Not saying they're better than Green Bay. Or even the Rams. But he gives them a shot. Because of those four teams, you know how much I love Brady. You know how much I respect Rodgers. You know how much I think Matthew Stafford is an upgrade over Jared Goff. But Russell's the best of those four quarterbacks. And if you had the best quarterback, you're always going to have a shot. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers in the years in Green Bay where their defense was bad, offensive line was so-so, and they had Mike McCarthy. And what did he do? Year in and year out, he got him to the playoffs. You know, they didn't always get to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, but he got him to the playoffs. So let me go now to the NBA. Brooklyn Nets won again last night. James Harden with another 40-point triple-double. First of all, I see there's some people who want to put James Harden in the MVP discussion. I guess that's fair now that Joel Embiid's hurt. I understand that, but come on, he's not having the season LeBron's having. I'm going to go so far as to say this. Let me just throw this out the way before I get to the Nets. If let's just say Kevin Durant comes back and he's Kevin Durant, and Blake Griffin is effective, and Kyrie and James Harden keep doing their thing. If LeBron James, if this Achilles keeps bothering Anthony Davis, which we all, of course, hope it doesn't. We hope he comes back. We want to see a fully healthy Lakers squad. If LeBron James carries the Lakers to the finals and beats the Nets without Anthony Davis, I will go ahead and crown him the GOAT. You know, I think Jordan's the GOAT, but I've said on the show since the very start of the season, if LeBron wins this title, which will be his fifth, the gap closes. I still have Jordan the GOAT, but the gap absolutely closes quite substantially. So keep your eye on that. But I'm just saying, if LeBron pulled that off with no Anthony Davis, he's the GOAT. He's the undisputed GOAT. So last night, the Brooklyn Nets beat the Indiana Pacers 124-115. James Harden was great last night. 40 points, 10 rebounds, 15 assists. It was a great night for him, especially no Kyrie Irving last night. Had a groin injury. Of course, Kevin Durant is still out. But I hear a lot of people saying, hey, even without Kevin Durant, the Brooklyn Nets are the favorites to win the East. No, they're not. No, they're not. Are they better than Milwaukee? Probably. I think that'd be probably a 6 or 7 game series, but I would favor the Nets. Okay, we're talking about James Harden, a league MVP, and Kyrie Irving, one of the better closers in basketball. But I'm not so sure they beat Miami without Kevin Durant. Keep in mind, the Miami Heat took the fully loaded Lakers. You know, Anthony Davis was playing the best basketball he's ever played. LeBron James was playing some of the best basketball he's ever played. And the Heat took them 6 games in the finals. Keep that in mind. I've talked about it for a year and a half on the show, time and time and time again. We see what happens to James Harden in the playoffs. Okay, go back to 2015. Game 5, closeout game against the Golden State Warriors. Okay, I remember this one very well. James Harden, this is a do or die, must-win game. Your season's on the line. You need your superstar to show up. If you lose, your season's over. And James Harden has an NBA playoff record, 13 turnovers. Okay, not good. 2 years later, a game 6 at home in the second round against the San Antonio Spurs. You're down 3-2, so this is do or die, win or go home. You had just come off a heartbreaking defeat in Game 5, where 39-year-old Manu Ginobili blocked your shot to end the game, blocked your game-winning attempt to end the game. But you're at home, and Kawhi Leonard's out, and Tony Parker had already been out. He got hurt in the first round of that playoffs. So Kawhi's out, and Tony Parker's out, and James Harden loses by 39 to the San Antonio Spurs. That same Spurs roster got swept by Golden State in the Western Conference Finals. Because we all know Kawhi played that one game, and the incident with Zaza Pachulia, the sliding the foot under the ankle. Kawhi's out the rest of the series. That same Spurs squad got swept by Golden State. They beat Houston by 39 in Game 6. That's how bad James Harden was. James Harden was like 2 for 13 for the field, 2 for 15, something like that. He was awful. We go to 2018 now. The Houston Rockets have a 3-2 series lead over the fully healthy Warriors. And Chris Paul goes down in game 5, and I hear this excuse a lot. If Chris Paul was healthy, they would have won the series. Well, if you're a top 5 player in the game, if you're quote-unquote the greatest scorer ever, you got to close that deal. You got to be that dude to lead your score. Michael Jordan's going to win that. LeBron James is going to win that. Kevin Durant's going to win. James Harden in game 6, the Houston Rockets have a 17-point lead at Golden State, and they lose by 26. So that's a 43-point turnaround. We go to game 7. You know, Bill Russell said it best. The best 2 words in sports are game 7. And he couldn't be more right about that. We go to game 7. It's on your home court in Houston. Chris Paul's out again, but hey, you're James Harden. You're the MVP. You can do this. And in the first half, he was doing it. The Rockets were doing that. They had a 15-point halftime lead and lost by 9, including missing 27 straight threes, which is a playoff record. It might be an NBA record. I know it's a playoff record. And James Harden was non-existent in that series in games 6 and 7. So we go to 2019 now. They're playing the Warriors, and we hear the excuse, right? If Chris Paul was healthy, they'd have beaten the Warriors. Well, you have Chris Paul. And it's a game 5. Series is tied 2-2. It's in Golden State. And Kevin Durant, little rip around, takes a dribble, baseline, jumper, nothing but net, and runs the other way, and boom. He feels something in his calf. And this, I believe, is an Achilles injury. They say it was a calf, whatever. Bottom line is Kevin Durant is out the rest of game 5. And it's a close game, too. Like, Golden State was up like 3 in the third quarter when Kevin Durant got hurt. There's a lot of time left for Houston to win that thing. And James Harden took 2 shots down the stretch in game 5 against the Warriors. And they lost. But guess what? You're in a game 6. It's do or die, but you're at home. This is very similar to San Antonio, right? Game 6, you're at home. Kevin Durant's gone. And you're on your home floor. You should force a game 7. And what happens? Steph Curry goes scoreless in the first half and drops 33 in the second half. And James Harden, once again, is virtually non-existent down the stretch. So we see this pattern with Harden. We've seen it against the Warriors. We've seen it against the Spurs. You say, well, now it's the East. I'll say this. Embiid's a great player. Embiid's a top player in the game. Philly looks pretty good without him. Simmons has looked better. Tobias Harris. Okay, Danny Green really struggled. He has his shooting woes. Did with the Lakers last year. He did at times with the Spurs, the Raptors. But Simmons is playing great right now. I'm going to talk about that game, the Sixers and the Bucks, to close out the show. But Philly looks really good right now. Okay, let's think about the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat are heating up. That's a terrible pun. I apologize for that. But Jimmy Butler has, we see how valuable he is to that team. Without him, they're one of the worst teams in basketball. With him, they appear to be a contender to get out of the East. And we've seen with Kyrie Irving, right? Kyrie Irving, when there is no LeBron James, what have we seen from him in the playoffs? Well, we've seen 2 playoff series. One, they swept Indiana. Okay, whatever. It's Indiana. And they advanced to the second round to play the Milwaukee Bucks. This is back in 2019. And the Celtics blow the Bucks out in game 1 in Milwaukee. You're like, okay, here come the Celtics. And they go on to lose 4 straight games to lose the series. And Kyrie Irving shoots 33% from the field. He was bad in that series. So, Kyrie's one of the clutchest players in basketball. He's one of the 5 players that if I got one shot to win the game, I want. Kevin Durant. I don't care what anybody says. LeBron, look at the numbers. I would take definitely Damian Lillard. It's Dame time. Let's see who else. One could make a solid argument for Kawhi Leonard. He did hit a game 7 buzzer beater for what it's worth. And then probably the 5th player will be Andre Iguodala. No, I'm just kidding. No. Point is, Kyrie's clutch. But if he's the guy you rely on in the playoffs, you're not winning that series. Especially against a great defensive team like Milwaukee, a great defensive team like Miami, and a great defensive team like Philadelphia. I'm hearing this in the media today. Hey, look at James Harden, 40-point triple-double, no Kyrie, no Kevin Durant. This is James Harden's team. No, it's not. It is not James Harden's team. Because we've seen what's happened with James Harden's teams. James Harden went out of Houston. I get it. The Rockets lost their 18th straight game last night. Literally 18 straight games. It's incredible. They're a bad basketball team. But we saw, at the beginning of the tenure in Houston, James Harden's like, I want Dwight Howard. Okay, we got you, Daryl Morey. He's made his mistakes, but to his credit, he got Dwight Howard. And then James Harden got tired of Dwight Howard. Okay, I want Chris Paul. All right, we got you Chris Paul. And he got tired of Chris Paul. Okay, I want my best friend since we were kids, Russell Westbrook. And everybody's like, oh, come on, this is going to work. It's Russell Westbrook. They're childhood buddies, right? Growing up in Southern California. And they're still close. Last season didn't hurt their relationship. It certainly appears, and that's great. But they get Russell Westbrook, and Russell Westbrook gets tired of James Harden. Russ gets tired of Harden. And so we just kind of see this. Anytime it's been James' team, he's scoring a lot. He's in the MVP discussion, but never that guy that's going to take you home and win you an NBA Finals. And Kyrie Irving, we know, was not that guy. Okay, without a second star, when Kyrie's your main guy, when Kyrie's Batman, we saw the first few years in Cleveland, they missed the playoffs. And then we saw the 2 years in Boston. The Celtics got to the Eastern Conference Finals without him. The first year Kyrie was in Boston. And then the second year he was in Boston, he was terrible in the playoffs. So we got to, and Kevin Durant, by the way, what has been the thing about Kevin Durant? Consistent playoff performer. He has OKC. He's had his, game 6 against Golden State was probably the biggest choke of his playoff career. That was bad. But we saw what happened throughout a game 3 in 2018 against the Cavs, okay? Steph shoots terribly. Clay shoots terribly. Draymond isn't very good. And KD drops 43 points and hits the dagger from 35 feet out. Okay, we saw even in 2018, by the way, before Kevin Durant's injury, Steph had not been playing well in the playoffs. Clay had really been off. Draymond up and down. You didn't know what you were getting. Even Iguodala wasn't great. And Kevin Durant was scoring 35, 40. He had a 50-point game against the Clippers and close out game 6, 45, 42. So consistent playoff performer has been the name of Kevin Durant. You need him to win a championship. And that might sound obvious to some people, like, of course you need Kevin Durant. But I'm seeing this narrative already. They don't need Kevin Durant. We saw this in Golden State, by the way. I'm a Dubs fan for life. But they needed Kevin Durant to win that 2019 Finals. Steph was exhausted. Clay had some injuries. Draymond, again, up and down at times. We saw with Iguodala dealt with injuries. Kevon Looney, DeMarcus Cousins. They needed Kevin Durant. And up until KD ultimately blew out his Achilles in Game 5 against Toronto in the finals, Golden State had looked like they were scratching and clawing just to stay in these games with the Raptors. And KD comes back and it's like, whoa, that's Golden State right there. Right? They go up by like 12 early. And so we're just like, oh yeah, they needed Kevin Durant to win in 2019. Don't let this narrative fool you. Brooklyn has to have Kevin Durant to win in 2019. They can't beat Philly without him. I don't think they can beat Milwaukee, and I've had my issues with Milwaukee. I think Giannis is amazing. His supporting cast is so-so, but Milwaukee can beat Brooklyn without if Brooklyn doesn't have Kevin Durant. I believe Miami can beat them because, again, Miami took LeBron and AD 6 games. You think they can't beat Harden and Kyrie? 2 guards? If they can beat two of the two best the best small forward in basketball and the best power forward in basketball, if they can take those 2 guys 6 games, you're telling me they can't take 2 of the top 5 point guards in the game? Because, listen, James Harden's a point guard. You're telling me they can't take 2 of the top 5 point guards in basketball? 6 games, 7 games, and win the series? Of course they can. Jimmy, as long as you got Jimmy Butler, as long as you got him, you got a shot. So this narrative that they don't need Kevin Durant is ridiculous. It's crazy. He's the most gifted scorer I think I've ever seen. So you just got to keep all that in mind. Still all kinds of free agent stuff coming in. See that the Jets sign another receiver. Again, I talked about they're discussing signing Juju Smith-Schuster from Pittsburgh. The NCAA tournament, March Madness, is already tipped off. We see right now Texas Southern is playing Mount St. Mary's. Texas Southern has a 46-42 lead with just under 8 minutes left in the first half. The winner of this game takes on Michigan. Of course, neither team's going to beat Michigan, but that game is on True TV right now if you want to tune into that. Hopefully after you finished watching the show, we'd really appreciate that. Drake is playing Wichita State. I believe Wichita State's going to win this game. And I think Wichita State, I said it on Monday, I think they're going to upset USC. I really do. I see some people actually have USC in the Elite Eight. So, but I got Wichita State upsetting USC. Wichita State early in the game has an 8-5 lead. About 7 minutes has gone by in that one. So March Madness, we got two other games tonight, by the way. Appalachian State, Norfolk State play tonight at 7:40 Eastern, 4:40 Pacific on True TV after Texas Southern and Mount St. Mary's. And UCLA, the big headliner, UCLA plays Michigan State on TBS right before 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. So, and then it really all gets kicked off tomorrow. Definitely I'll be doing a show. Tomorrow is always on Fridays. And some of it might just be, reacting to some of the games. So should be interesting. I love March Madness. I said it on Monday. March Madness to me is one of the three biggest events, sporting events in the United States. Super Bowl's number one, no question. The Masters and March Madness. And then you can take, I would rather watch the finals than the Masters because I'm more of an NBA guy, but still the Masters is huge. Then, World Series. I love watching the World Series every year. So we got a lot of great sporting events in America, the U.S. Open as well. But this is March Madness goes against. And it's great to have it back after not having it, not having it last year because the pandemic had just hit us. So there was no March Madness. So final topic of the day, the Philadelphia 76ers played the Milwaukee Bucks last night. Really interesting game on ESPN. I remember with 3 minutes left in the game, they were tied at 80, which in today's NBA is virtually unheard of, where you got a low-scoring game, it's tied at 80. What? Like it's crazy. So last night the Bucks won 109-105. Especially, it was a crazy end of regulation. I think it was that Korkmaz kid hit a game-tying three to send the game to overtime in the left corner. But I saw last night, and anytime a story like this comes up, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. Because Giannis, who should be in the MVP discussion, by the way, look at his numbers. Giannis really struggles in the first half yesterday. He scores only 4 points. And in the second half and overtime, in the second half of overtime, he drops 28. So got off to a rough start, but as the old cliche goes, if it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. So Giannis goes off for 28 in the second half in overtime. And he hits he kind of does a little move in the paint. And he turns around and hits kind of a fadeaway shot to put the Bucks up by 4 with about a minute left in overtime. And of course, the Bucks went on to win the game. And Giannis jogged out to the other side of the court to the opposite free throw line and kind of sat down. He sat down the court, close to the opposite free throw line. And, Philadelphia fans being how they are, and I'm not just going to make this a Philadelphia fan thing. I say most sports fan bases would have done this. Yeah, they're booing him. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But we hear that Philadelphia players, they didn't like it. Some of these Philadelphia players didn't like Giannis going the other end and sitting down. Now, if these two teams play in the playoffs, this could serve. I'm telling you, these kind of things matter. Remember Tyreek Hill doing the backflip against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that Week 12 game in Tampa Bay. Tyreek Hill does the backflip, the deuces, and then backflip. And the Buccaneers said going to the Super Bowl, or after they destroyed Kansas City in the Super Bowl, yeah, we remembered that. We remembered him, piecing us out and backflipping the end zone. They said they thought it was disrespectful. And we saw Antoine Whitfield at the end of the game when Kansas City, it was 3 minutes left. Kansas City failed to convert on 4th down. And Antoine Whitfield goes to Tyreek Hill and does that. So they remember that. So if you're Philadelphia, use this as motivation because, these little psychological advantages, they do matter. But I see they're complaining. They're like, oh, he shouldn't have done that. Okay. I didn't love it personally, but I'll say this. I can complain. I got a right to complain. Other fans of other teams, they can't. Other teams can complain about it. But Philadelphia, 76ers, I'm gonna put this on the fans. I'll put this on the players. You got no right to complain about this. You blew a 19-point lead. You got to close that game out. Okay, you got to close that game out against Milwaukee if you got a 19-point lead. And they didn't. And so it's like Cam Newton, I always use this example. Cam Newton, I remember the year he won the MVP in 2015. He scored a touchdown late in the football game. They're up huge on Tennessee. He scores a touchdown from a couple of yards out. And he doesn't just do the super cam and the dab and everything. He does like a little extracurricular activity, does a little extra dance. And a Titans linebacker comes up, and there's a little scuffle in the end zone. And after the game, he's asked about, I don't remember what the linebacker's name was, but the reporter says, so-and-so, this linebacker didn't like it. And Cam Newton's response was, well, if you don't like it, don't let me score. If you don't like Giannis celebrating or sitting on your court after a shot, don't blow a 19-point lead. Don't let him go for only 4 in the first half and 28 in the second half and overtime. So just keep those little things in mind. If you blow it like that, you can't complain about them celebrating the way they did or Giannis celebrating the way he did. You put him in that position. Giannis ain't sitting on the court celebrating if it's a 15-point Philadelphia lead with 2 minutes left. I can promise you that. So just keep that in mind. Like, if a guy celebrates after hitting a big shot, especially if a team's blown a lead, or even if a team hasn't blown a lead, even if it's a blowout, I don't love it. I don't. But if the other side, don't let them score. Don't let but it's not like Giannis dunked on them. That's hard to stop. Giannis is 6'11". They call him the Greek Freak for a reason, but he's notoriously not a good free throw shooter. He's notoriously not a good mid-range shooter or a three-point shooter. He does not have a pure jump shot yet. He's notorious for that. We've seen it in the playoffs against the Raptors and against the Heat, the last 2 Bucks playoff losses. But if he hits that, you can stop that. You can stop a Giannis jump shot. It's not like a Kevin Durant jump shot. You can stop that. So, if you don't like it, don't let him score. This is the Cam Newton quote from 2015, and I love it. If you don't like someone do something, okay, don't let him. If you don't like Tyreek Hill backflipping in the end zone and giving you the deuces, stop him. And you know what they did? The Bucks, they stopped him in the Super Bowl. He did nothing. He was, virtually insignificant in that game. Bucks took it to heart. Philadelphia, it's a regular season game. Yesterday, March the 17th. If you play in the playoffs, you get an opportunity to stop them. And I think they can, by the way, do it. They can do what Toronto did once Embiid gets healthy. Remember what Toronto did in the playoffs in 2019, right? They Kawhi and Gasol and Ibaka, they walled up the paint. They're like, you're not scoring on us. Kind of playing a 2-3. 2-3 zone. And so, in this situation, they got Embiid, they got Simmons, very big basketball team. They're one of the biggest teams in basketball. So, you could stop Giannis, using that. So if you use this as motivation, do what Tampa Bay did with the Chiefs. Do what other teams have done if they didn't like the celebration of their squad. They're like, okay, we'll see you in the playoffs, and you get an opportunity to quiet them. That's the beauty of sports. You'll always get a second chance. A lot of times, if you get that second opportunity, you got to take advantage of it. So that's my thoughts on that whole situation. Okay, March Madness, it's technically already started, but it really ramps up tomorrow night. It's really tomorrow afternoon. There's going to be all kinds of games going on. It's going to be crazy. Can't flip and wait. It's going to be a fun day of basketball, fun show tomorrow. So be sure to catch Carving It Up live tomorrow. As always, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on YouTube and Twitter. Also, for the podcast audience, thank you guys for listening as well. You'll listen to the show on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and wherever you get your podcasts. Hope everybody has a great evening. March Madness starts tomorrow. Let's go. Please continue to stay safe. God bless you all. Peace out.